So I'm here today with Melissa Sterry. Melissa, how are you? Are you keeping warm?
I'm just about keeping warm, yes.
I look out the window and it's snowing for us both. Listen, we've worked together for many years, but it's always intrigued me. You have a vast array of talents. How would you describe yourself?
I think problem solver. I do have job titles because we have to have them, but essentially somebody gives me a problem and I find solving it, or I find a problem, and I don't think of disciplines. I just think, okay, what do we got here? What do I need to look at to try and work this out? Who do I need to speak with? So yeah.
Is it something that you've always done, and then kind of almost the academia and the qualifications came on top, or is it something that you've had to, is a kind of a learned skill?
It's sort of evolved, really. I mean, I was always somebody that worked in that way, but you know, I was very much the generation where you had to have a job, and it was meant to be a job for life. And then, of course, I think I'm fortunate because I started to realize you could do a few different things, and I very much follow the opportunities. I'm not somebody that will persevere against a blockage for very long. I will always look for where things are opening up, where you can actually make an impact. And if I have to go the scenic route, then I go the scenic route. So it's been pretty organic, I'd say, the whole process of my career development.
But if we said now, you are a world-leading authority in the kind of science tech space. From your perspective, kind of, was it a planned process, or was it just you saw problems ahead of you and you solved those problems and moved on, and suddenly kind of credibility and authority and everything was recognized by the outside world?
I was always very consumed by serious problems. So even when I was 15, 16, I was kind of in the Greta Thunberg space, but we didn't have social media then. So it was literally just me and my little projects. And that's really where it's all come from. I wanted to be working on really serious problems full-time in my work much younger, but there just wasn't the industry then. So as things opened up, I mean, when I first got involved with sustainability, I was very much working with charities, and the reason I sort of went more into strategy is I thought, now hang on a minute, we need to troubleshoot at the source of the problem rather than do a clear up operation. So there was a little bit of frustration there on my part. But also I've always worked with futures and foresight. That's been there, right? Even when, at 11 years old, I was creating my forecast. So I've just worked out ways to develop that professionally. But when I made the choice to actually, if you like, pitch my hat in the ring full time as a futurist, focus on that was a bit of a punt, because although I'd worked with futures before, all the businesses that I had founded or co-founded or worked with had been very future focused. I just thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. And I had no expectations, no idea where it was going to go. And thankfully, right timing, right place, you know, I started to get clients, and I thought, yeah, I can continue with this now.
And how, okay, I think that's a really interesting comment, because obviously the world of science and technology is ever changing and it's ever moving forward. How do you stay ahead of the game? How do you kind of know that you are continue in the right space and the subject matters you're talking about are hitting home and are valid?
Well, thankfully, I'm actually mildly autistic, which means I have a very deep issue in some areas, and I'm very consistent. So I've been studying a lot of areas a long time. So for me, the sort of process of, let's say, keeping up to speed with what the latest developments in AI or biodesign or whatever it might be, and it's sort of incremental steps. It's just keeping atop of it daily. But also I use a lot of different sources, so I don't rely on any one thing. I kind of very much ground my futures work not just in what's happening in science and in technology and what's possible, but also what's happening culturally. Because if people don't want to do it, if it doesn't resonate with people, whatever it is, it's not going to fly. So my process is a little bit unusual in that sense, in that yes, I use the literature, I have hands-on research, but I have a lot of conversations. I speak with a lot of people, and I observe and I listen and I take it in.
And something you mentioned earlier, which I want to come back to, kind of when you mentioned kind of early in your career, maybe the opportunities weren't there. Are you speaking as a kind of someone immersed in science, or were you speaking kind of from a female perspective of actually women in STEM, I suppose? Was the opportunities not there, but other people were doing it?
No, I was never even conscious of the sort of gender issues for a long time. I was literally probably about 27 by the time it really started to hit home that there really were differences.
Mm-hmm.
I was very much of the generation that, when I was growing up, Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister, Elizabeth II was the Queen. So I just had this vision, women can, get to the top of the sector. But certainly the areas I was interested in were very, very at the edge. They were very new. And in my experience, most things that are genuinely pioneering take around several years to transition from being something that is new to working through the prototyping and development to then actually getting visibility. But I find that probably one of my challenges is because I'm so immersed in the new. This is one reason I have a lot of conversations with a wide variety of people. I sometimes can feel that something is further ahead than it is. So I have to have reality checks. I mean, for me, by design is already very advanced. But then I realize when I chat with some people about, the subject, like, oh, well, what is biodesign? What is biofuturism? Yeah. And then you realize kind of quite where everything is.
And how do you then, I hesitate to say the phrase dumb it down, but like make it accessible to everyone when for the majority it's not yet in their sphere?
In all honesty, I prefer dumbing it down a bit because I actually find writing things like science papers and chapters really quite labor intensive because I'm a visual thinker. So I do think in pictures, not words. And I use a lot of metaphors, a lot of analogies. And because I think in pictures, not words, I can generally explain what it is in a very simplistic way. And I don't think of that as being anything lesser. It's just a different language. It's just a different way of expression.
Excellent. So go on as a wrap. Give me something. Give me what you're excited by right now and what's going on.
Oh my goodness, what am I excited about? Well, I'm excited about the fact that a number of the ideas that I was working with back in the 2000s that people would just think were crazy are now scaling. So we've got growing furniture in an orchard. If you'd have said that in 2001, people would have just thought, you've lost it.
Yeah.
We're doing that. I'm really glad to see that biomimetic design like the Aptera electric vehicle that does 1,000 miles on a single charge. You can have a solar powered version that you don't even have to charge up. You just sit it in the sun. People that like me that are slightly bad at judging the amount of fuel in the tank to get you from A to B, really handy innovation. I'm just really glad to see these things now going from prototype and into market. And it's a relief really, because the problems of the world are so serious, but we have got some radical innovations, really exciting ideas, and to see those growing and actually getting market ready is great.
Melissa, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking.
Pleasure as always, Nick. Thank you very much.